All right, let's dive right in. We're about to tackle something, well, something that's at the very core of who you think you are. The idea that you and you alone are in the driver's seat. I mean, really think about it for a second. Are you really in control of who you are? Your personality, the choices you make, what you like and dislike? Is that all you? Are you the one writing that story? Well, some really fascinating science suggests that maybe, just maybe, you're more of a co-author than the sole writer. So, where do we even start with a question that big? Well, how about with something incredibly small? A tiny, single celled parasite called Toxoplasma gondii. Now, this thing is super common, but what it does inside the brain of its host, that's where this whole story gets absolutely wild. Okay, so check this out. It's a total 180-degree flip of a mouse's basic survival instinct. See, this parasite, its whole goal is to get inside a cat's stomach to reproduce. So how does it do that? It literally hijacks the mouse's brain. It takes that natural, healthy fear of cats and turns it into a bizarre, fatal attraction. The poor mouse is basically reprogrammed to walk right into the lion's den, all for the parasite's benefit. Now, I know what you're thinking. Okay, that's creepy, but that's just mice, right? Well, not quite. The effects in humans are way more subtle for sure, but here's the kicker. Studies have found some really interesting statistical links. People who have this parasite are, on average, a little more likely to take risks. They're a bit more impulsive, they even get into more car accidents. And weirdly enough, they're also more likely to start their own business. How crazy is that? And this is the most important part of the whole thing. The people with these changes, they don't feel like they've been changed. They don't feel like a parasite is pulling the strings. Nope. They just think, that's who I am. I'm just a risk taker. They completely own it. That new behavior just gets absorbed right into their identity. I mean, it's not like our sense of self comes with a little ingredient list that says, influenced by your hormones, how much you slept, and, oh yeah, that tiny parasite in your brain. So this really strange parasite story is kind of a gateway, right? It forces us to ask a much, much bigger question. If a little microbe can quietly nudge our personality in a different direction and we don't even notice, then what does that mean for this idea we have of a single, stable, real you? Most of us grow up thinking of ourselves as this solid thing, right? Like a fixed, unchanging core that we can control with pure willpower. But what the science is pointing to is something way more fluid, more dynamic. It's less like a rock and more like a recurring pattern of reactions. And that pattern is constantly being shaped and reshaped by all kinds of underlying conditions. And wow, look at this list. We are talking about so many different conditions. It's not just some weird parasite. We're talking about your neurotransmitter levels like dopamine and serotonin, your hormones, how much stress cortisol is floating around, the bacteria in your gut. Did you sleep well last night? What was your childhood like? All of these things, and so many more, are constantly turning the dials on your personality. So maybe a better way to picture it is this. The real you isn't just one single point on a map. It's more like a variable range, a whole spectrum of potential behaviors and feelings. And the version of you that shows up right now, well, that depends completely on your current state, both what's happening inside your body and what's going on around you. Okay, so if the self is this shifty, fluid thing, how in the world are we supposed to get a handle on it? Well, there's a really helpful model we can use. Think of it as the 3 layers of the self. All right, let's break this down. At the very bottom, you've got the biological self. This is basically your hardware, your genes, your hormones, the wiring of your nervous system. You really don't have direct control over this stuff, right? It's just the machinery you're working with. Then, layered on top of that, is the psychological self. These are your learned patterns, your emotional habits, the ways you've learned to cope with things. This layer is what we call semi-plastic. You can change it with effort, like through therapy or just deep self-reflection. But then there's the top layer. And this, to me, is the most fascinating one, the observer self. This is the part of you that's simply aware. It's the voice in your head that can notice what's happening in the other 2 layers. It's the part that goes, I'm feeling super irritable today. What's that about? And the best part? This layer is trainable. And this might be the biggest takeaway of all. The closest thing we have to what we call free will, it isn't about having some kind of bulletproof personality. It's about developing that observer self. It's the ability to just step back for a second and see your own reactions happening without getting totally sucked into the drama of it all. Which brings us to a really important, kind of sticky question. If you can be influenced by a parasite or just by a bad night's sleep, is that grumpy, risk-taking version of you, is that still the real you? The answer here is subtle, but it's so important. The answer is yes, it is you. But, and this is a big but, it's not the whole you. Think of it like this. It's the part of your system, the part of your possible range of selves, that gets switched on most easily when you're in that specific biological state. I mean, just think about your own life, right? The grumpy, can't think straight you when you're sleep deprived, that's a real you. But so is the happy, energized you right after a good workout. The you that's head over heels in love sees the world in a totally different way than the you who might be going through a period of depression. All of those versions are authentic. They're all real, but none of them is the final you. They're just snapshots. So if there's no pure version of ourselves to get back to, what do we do with all this? The goal kind of shifts, doesn't it? It's less about iron-fisted control and more about skilled navigation, learning to work with the system you have. So let's talk about a new operating manual for yourself. First off, just accept that you're not a perfectly clear window to yourself. There are things going on under the hood you're not aware of. Second, get a little bit skeptical anytime you catch yourself saying, oh, that's just how I am. Is it, or is that just how you are right now? Third, and this is a big one, give yourself a buffer. Before you make a huge decision, just wait. Let your state settle down. And finally, start treating yourself less like a fortress you have to defend and more like a complex system, like a garden that you need to take care of. And this all leads to a really powerful final thought. Just the simple act of asking yourself, is the state I'm in right now the right one for making this call? That might be one of the most powerful forms of self-awareness there is. That is your observer self doing its job. So the next time you have a really strong feeling or you're about to make a big choice, just hit the pause button and ask, is this me or is this just my current state talking?